Everybody to the final in our Algarve series. This series is particularly focusing on buying and renting property in the Algarve. And that comes under many different areas, whether you're thinking of retirement, investment, holidays, work-life balance, health and wellness, many different sections. So today we are very lucky to have a panel of four great different types of resorts and of property. We've got Silva, Director of Algarve Living Series, Chitra CEO of the Martinhal, Chitra Group, João Costa, Director of Sales and Marketing in Ombria Group, and Michael Stock, Manager of Quinta dos Vales. My name is Carolyn. I am the owner of Shebang Events and PR Management. We are a freelance event and PR management based in Ireland, UK and Portugal, with the design on trying to facilitate small to medium businesses in various different needs, whether that be in social media marketing, in event marketing, event planning, basically anything to do with that side of things. So today we have all four of our speakers are representing a very different location and a very different aspect to buying or renting in the Algarve. So Chitra, could I maybe ask you to introduce yourself and what your company does first?
Sure. My name is Chitra, and my husband and I moved from London 20 years ago. He's from Zurich. I'm originally from Singapore, of Indian origin, but British in the meantime. And we moved to the Algarve in 2001. Since then, we have built up resorts under the brand name of Martinhal. We have a real estate business and a hotel business with that brand name. And we're also the owners of the United Lisbon International School, which we just opened last year in Park of Nations in Lisbon. And we're doing a branded residences project in the Park of Nations as well. So we know Lisbon and the Algarve quite well. In the Algarve, we have two properties. One is in Sagres, our original mothership, and the other one is in Quinta do Lago, which the Irish know extremely well. So that's a quick, and I'm the mother of 4 kids, and we love living in Portugal.
Perfect. Michael, you're obviously the manager of Quinta dos Vales, but also I'm tongue-tied today, Carvoeira Gardens. You maybe introduce yourself and what you offer.
Sure. Manager, yep, I'm Michael. It's me and my dad, so it's a father and son team. He started the winery Quinta dos Vales, which is our central hub. That's where we have our first development, which I'll be introducing today, called The Vines. It's 32 semi-detached units that we are selling as holiday homes and also renting out. And the second one is a development near us, but on the coastline, which is called Carvoeira Gardens, where we're acting as a developer, and it has a very different type of target audience, both of which I'll go into more detail about today.
Perfect. And João from Umbria?
Yep. So I represent Umbria Resort. Umbria is a new development that is being built in Algarve. Is located just 7 kilometers north of Loulé and 20 kilometers north of Faro Airport and the beautiful beaches near Quinta do Lago and Valdelobo and so on. So being inland, the resort is well integrated into the local landscape. It's a very natural landscape crossed by streams and rivers and very hilly area as well. The entire resort is 150 hectares in total. And we started construction of the first phase, which includes a 5-star hotel and an 18-hole golf course. We started the construction of that about a couple of years ago. And the first phase will finish next year in 2022 with the opening of the 5-star hotel and of the branded residences that we are building and selling at the moment, and that I'll go into more detail during this presentation.
Perfect. And Luis?
Hi, everybody. Firstly, thanks, Arnold, for the invite to speak at the webinar. Much appreciated, and welcome to everybody. I'm Luis da Silva, So from my rather Joe Smith type name, you can see I'm a typical Portuguese. I was born in Mozambique, have lived in 10 countries around the world. And our family, actually, we have 3 children. 5 of us are born on 4 different continents. So it's a bit of a mishmash, actually. My background is in the sort of corporate world, but we moved the family for various reasons to the Algarve in the early noughties. And the children basically grew up in the Algarve, which is a wonderful environment in which to grow up. We have an African background, and the Algarve was pretty much the closest we could find to kind of Southern Africa and these sort of conditions. So it was a wonderful sort of experience for them. A lot of them have now moved on. One's a master's from Covilhã, the other one's a master from Barcelona and whatever. So they're all kind of semi-hanging on. Our business is slightly different. We operate and have been big fans of, and Chitra was mentioning this earlier, of reducing the seasonality in the Portuguese market and the Algarve in particular. And so our business, one of our main businesses has been focused on helping people move over to Portugal full time. And so we do a lot of work with long-term rentals, winter rentals and stuff like that, because we believe that that's the sort of the basis of the sustainable kind of all year round Algarve season. And then we also, so at that first business, which is Algarve Senior Living and Portugal Senior Living, focuses on all sorts of services relating to migration of people. Primarily, they tend to be pre-retirees and retirees to Portugal, all tons of services around that. And then we finally managed, we have ambitions like Chitra, but we're kind of tiny compared to Chitra and Roman. But we've finally managed to, we're going to get started on our first independent living project, which is really aimed, it's kind of an independent living retirement community, but in an urban location in Praia da Luz. And we really have, we hope that we'll be able to create this sort of type of accommodation that exists already in many other countries, a kind of small independent living retirement community. So we do a lot of work with retirees and pre-retirees. And so those are the 2 sort of angles at which we tend to tackle the business.
Excellent. Now today we're obviously focusing on buying or renting and obviously relocating to Portugal. So I hope you don't mind, but I've got some very specific and some very nosy questions to ask each of you. To start with, there is obviously panel, if you've got any questions, please send them through. Obviously we will answer them as best we can. If we don't manage to answer them all, we will, throughout the conversation, we will do so at the end. But each of the 4 of you have very, very different models. Michael, there's a lot of models that you say buy to let, rent to buy, investment, retiring, wellness. How would you best describe your model, Michael?
There's plenty of marketing terms, but at the end of the day, all we really want to convince people is to give the Algarve a try. I think everyone on this panel will agree that once you come here for the first time, it's difficult to stop. And a lot of people end up moving here full term. I mean, I can give the example of my parents. They came for a 1-week holiday, first time to Portugal. And on the 3rd day, they had already purchased and were living in the house that they've lived in for decades. So our model, there's different options, but we have the Vines apartments at Quinta dos Vales, which are integrated into the existing vineyard. Those were primarily, the concept was for rental units, for tourism. But since then, we've had a lot of more reaction of people. We've had people buy that can live there year round, others who are going to rent just as holiday homes. And we even have people who, like Luis said, for long-term lets. So really, we just want to bring people to the Algarve. And for the other project, Carvoeira Gardens, it's the same thing. It's not integrated into a winery. It's more the classical Algarve living. So villas near the ocean front.
Perfect. And as regards to the wines, when you said you integrated the rental into the wines, what do they get with that?
Well, there is the option to combine it, really. So it works as a standalone project where it's literally just integrated physically. So you basically have, no matter where you look, you're going to have vineyards either side of you. But we do have also people that have combined the two passions. So we have people that have holiday homes at the vines that they own, and they also make their own wine with us. So the idea that every year they have a barrel of self-made wine that comes from their vineyard, which they can even see from their own apartment. So that's that integration.
Excellent. Chitra, just over to you. What type of model? Obviously, you've got two resorts in Sagres and obviously Quinta do Lago. What type of model do you tend to inherit or promote?
Gosh, I mean, everything. Like Michael's parents, Roman and I came originally for, to do a project for 5 years, and we ended up staying. We lived in the Algarve for 15 years, actually. Time flies when you're having fun, and 4 kids and a project. We moved to Lisbon in 2016 for further business opportunities and to move to the capital city. But we promote long-term rentals as well as holiday stays. I mean, obviously we have a hotel brand, Martinhal, which we've grown from scratch since 2010, and it stands for family holidays at the luxurious end of the market, for families to enjoy their time together, quality time together, with all the elements of quality associated, good food, wine, etc. But we're also, if you think of both Quinta do Lago and Quinta do Lago has a lot of owners who use their own homes for long-term stays. So, but in Sagres, it's a new thing that we're promoting, actually, because of COVID. We've had some people stay for more than 6 months, just riding out the time, in a very safe place. Sagres is in the middle of a natural park. It's at the beach. Almost no infection rates, very low infection rates. So very beautiful place to stay. And you've got international schools within 20 minutes to half an hour drive, Valverde, Barlavento. My kids, when we lived in Sagres for 7 years, and my kids went to the Escola Internacional do Algarve, what is Nobel today. Actually, Luis and I were talking about that earlier. Our kids went to the same school. Michael, you went to...
I went there.
There too, yes, because I was wondering whether you went to the Deutsche Schule. But yeah, so Escola Internacional do Algarve. So, families choose to live, in places where there are international schools, which is why we're building one in the Parque das Nações area now. Long-term rentals are a thing, but, you start by renting before you make the decision. I think there are a lot of people right now coming to Portugal in general. We're seeing this phenomenon, which may not have been the case, 20 years ago when I arrived, that, people are giving it a go. They rent somewhere for a year, and they take their time to make a decision to buy something, get their kids into school, rent something, and then do all the other stuff. We're seeing a wave of Americans coming as well. It's incredible. I mean, the Irish know the Algarve quite well, but I think Portugal, for a wave of migration, America is a new player in the market. So yeah, it's interesting times. So we've got long-term rentals in pretty much all our properties currently. So if anyone's interested, please do give us a shout.
Just to pick up something you said there, Chitra, as regards obviously the summer season or the Portugal season coming up, we sort of feel the season's going to extend from summer into autumn. Holiday rentals wise, how does that work for your resorts? I mean, as regards communal pools, with COVID, obviously, do you honestly think that open facilities will be a thing in the summer, or do you think there'll be restrictions still in place, or?
Last summer,
I think that's a problem for resorts in the summer.
Last summer we had open facilities. I think it'll go back to sort of a clean and safe, where Turismo de Portugal did a huge sort of, preparation of operating in a clean and safe way. I'm not saying masks is going to come off this summer, or, it's all going to go back to 2019 ways. But we were able to operate, and there were no cases of COVID in any of our hotels or resorts. So, I think the summer, will probably be like last summer. But everything, we had restaurants open, but, with a lot of care, everyone wearing masks, and we tell guests who are not wearing masks to wear masks, and with open windows. I mean, we've designed our resort in a way where there's a lot of windows to open in the restaurants, and we have a high inventory of houses. They're all houses in Quinta do Lago, and a large majority of the properties in Martinhal, in Sagres, are houses. So we were popular, during COVID times. The buy to let is also, a popular thing. You were asking about different models. There are people investing still buy to let, or, we've had a huge success. We've sold 30 properties in Martinhal residences since the last lockdown, since last March, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. But that was the first phase in construction of buy to let. We offered 4% initially, then 3%, and now we're offering 3% buy to let. And buy to live is another model. So there's really different models out there. Search and you will find. I mean, because of so many properties being built for Airbnb, and with the tourism market suffering, I think there's also rentals. And we're not going to do huge long-term rentals. If we have a few, that's fine. Obviously we want to focus on short-term rentals in the summer as well. And for autumn, we were always busy. To give you an idea, I mean, in 2019, under normal circumstances, October is a busy month for us. Because we get, the Swiss holidays, the Swiss autumn holidays, the German autumn holidays, and the British half term all happening in October. So, and we've grown the French market as well. So, it's really between mid-November and March, under normal circumstances, that you would consider, low season. But, this year will be different. And I would come out and have a look. First step, as soon as you're able to fly, come out, get your kids in school in September and start feeling it. Because as someone said, was it Michael, they never turned back. And Luis, we all came here for a few years initially, and then look at me 20 years later.
João, well, how would you define your business model in Umbria?
Yes, so Umbria is owned by a Finnish company based in Helsinki, Pontus Group. And from the beginning, the founder and owner of Pontus Group and owner and developer of Umbria Resort, Mr. Kokila, he wanted to do something different than already exists in the Algarve. He wanted to do a resort that is well integrated into the local landscape, that whose core value is sustainability. And sustainability is not just about renewable energies. It's also about doing or creating a new community that lives off the surrounding community, that contributes to the local economy, by, for example, promoting the local businesses, by employing local people, and also by contributing to the reduction of seasonality. So the idea has always been to do a resort that lives all year round. And for that, we basically created different property developments and a hotel and a golf course within Umbria Resort. And the different property developments within Umbria Resort have different target clients. So we have different models, basically. So we have, within the hotel, we sell branded residences that are going to be managed by Viceroy Hotels and Resorts, which is an American brand of hotels. So it's a hotel management company, and it's their first hotel in Southern Europe. They basically specialized in managing five-star hotels around the world, mainly in America, Caribbean, Mexico, etc. And now they're expanding to Europe. And they will be managing the Viceroy residences, which are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. That is essentially a buy-to-let model. So owners, they buy one of these apartments. They can use it for a part of the year. They get, privileges and use and access and use of all the facilities in the hotel, which include, 5 restaurants, a spa with wellness facilities, swimming pools, a conference center, the golf clubhouse, etc. But also the resort includes things such as a farm, an organic farm, a place where you can watch the stars. We will have beekeeping facilities for people to do their own honey or learn how to do honey, etc. So all of these owners that will buy in the buy-to-let model will have use of all these facilities and will also get a rental income generated by the rentals of their apartments when they are not using their apartments. We even offer 5% rental guarantee for the first 5 years for these branded residences. And then next to the hotel, we also sell villas that are built on their own plots. And it's not a buy-to-let model, it's a buy-to-live model because it's for people who want to have their own villas, live there all year round if they want to, or also rent them out if they wish. And they are different from the apartments in the hotel because they can be personalized for each client that buys them, basically. So we will have both clients who are looking for an investment, such as the one in the Viceroy residences, which gives them a good rental return. And we also have clients that are looking to live permanently in the resort and be part of the community and live in the Algarve all year round. So basically we have, we offer things for different types of clients, and we offer both models.
Perfect. Luis, you're a little bit different. You're sort of long-term rentals and obviously the senior living aspect. Can you maybe explain a little bit about your models?
Yeah, sure. So I actually wanted to pick up on a comment that Chitra made a little bit earlier on about the sort of the winter rentals and so on. And that's, I think, particularly important. One of the, in fact, I've just responded because Kevin had asked me asked somebody on the chat about the long-term rentals things. And one of the things that we often talk about in terms of long-term rentals is the fact that if you're looking at moving, for example, from Ireland and spending a time in another part of Europe, especially that a part of Europe is pretty calm in terms of COVID, which the Algarve is, generally speaking, despite all the kind of general stories and whatever around Portugal. The Algarve is a pretty calm, low incidence of COVID and so on. So whether you want to be stuck, for example, in the winter in a pretty rainy Ireland, as we know, or in a sunnier Algarve, if you give yourself time to settle in, even if there are some limitations and restrictions around COVID, then the Algarve is a great place to do that. And last year we had exactly this phenomenon, a huge increase in demand for longer term rentals because of the fact that people figured out, well, if I've got to be in lockdown somewhere, I may as well make sure that it's in a place where it's nice weather, good food, all the good things that, appeal to the Algarve, as regards the Algarve. So we saw this increase in demand over and beyond the normal in terms of the long-term rentals. And we always say to people, start with a winter rental, especially if you haven't been to the Algarve for a while now, or you kind of trying to figure out where you might want to stay, or if you're coming up to retirement, for example, and you want to understand, well, where is it that you want to make your permanent home? So our business model on the rental side is all about allowing that choice to happen. So we, in the Algarve specifically, we have a very broad portfolio of properties, around 200 or so properties spread across the Algarve, of all different styles and types, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, in cities, on the peripheries, villas with individual pools. So you can come with a family, you can come by yourself, you can come as a couple, and it's all about allowing you time to make the choice about where you'd like to be sort of further on, or to do this on a repeat fashion. And then answering your question about the senior living, I mean, I'm passionate about this because we're all going to land up somewhere further on, you know, trying to figure out how we're going to move and work into our retirement. So those of us who are thinking ahead are thinking, okay, well, I actually want to be in a place where I can be with friends. I can be, you know, I can socialize with the sort of same socio-demographic profile as myself, for example. And so our principle behind Luge Living was creating exactly that sort of community. It's a very high-end luxury condominium in one of the Algarve's most sought-after coastal resorts called Praia da Luz. It's going to be a project that has got all sorts of amenities on site, indoor swimming pool so you can swim in the winter, you know, a gymnasium, a jacuzzi, a 24-hour concierge service with a reception, an owner's lounge, a private garden for the community itself. And this is only 2 minutes walk from a supermarket, 1 minute walk from a restaurant, 5 minutes walk from the beach. So you really are a community within a community. And that's really what we're about at Luge Living. It's creating that, the ability for people to be in a community itself, quite exclusive, yet being integrated into the local community. So you get the benefit of both worlds. You know, you could be theoretically in a kind of an expat haven, but you're also in a local haven. So you're really getting the balance between the two. And that's what Luge Living is about.
Excellent. João, just back to you. As regards COVID, I know COVID's a bit of a stigma, but unfortunately it's what we're all living with. Has that affected your selling prices? You know, either your buy-to-let model, or obviously people wanting to buy homes, you know, as in full-time homes here. Has it affected your prices, or has it affected the amount of sales you've had inside the last year, or is people still as keen to buy as ever?
No, the people are still as keen. I mean, we only started selling the Viceroy residences in January 2020. And actually, you know, we started off so well that on the 1st of March 2020, we increased the prices of the remaining units because we had sold already some units.
Disregard that. He didn't. He brought the prices down. An Irish person doesn't want to hear prices went up.
Well, it means that, you know, when we're talking about investment properties, it's key to invest as soon as possible, basically, because, you know, prices will eventually go up. And they have just gone up again, actually, on the 1st of March 2021, so 10 days ago.
You're killing me here.
We increased the prices again.
He's not taking your hint.
But no worries, because they will increase again before the end of the construction of the hotel. So the message
buy now is the answer. Buy now.
Yes, indeed. I mean, to give you an idea, we're 1 year and 3 months away from opening the hotel, and we have sold about 40% of the units in the Viceroy residences. Okay. So we still have 60% of them left. So there's still time to buy, and there's still time to increase the prices again. So the message is obviously, when it comes to investment properties, buy as soon as you can, and buy, you know, sooner rather than later. With regards to the villas, for example, which is a totally different model, as I said before, we haven't increased the prices yet. So we launched the sales of those villas last year as well. And they're still at the same price as we had them last year, simply because we haven't made as many sales in terms of percentage as in the Viceroy residences. But they will, you know, again, we will increase their prices as soon as we sell, you know, a few more of the villas, basically. So to answer your question, it has not affected our prices negatively, no. On the contrary, people are still buying. I mean, lately, all the sales that we've done are to clients that are buying at a distance. So some clients that are buying they can't travel at the moment, and they're buying even without coming to see the project physically. Some are waiting, for the flights to restart. They will probably restart quite soon. And so some are waiting to be able to come and see it. But others are just, they're happy to view the property using the videos that we show them. We do FaceTime calls or Zoom calls on location where we show them, the properties that are being built and so on. We travel around with them, during the call, and they're happy to make the step and move forward and buy the properties.
Do you think virtual marketing is a way forward?
I think so, yes. I mean, we've been selling like this since last year, basically, when the lockdown started in March last year, so about a year ago. And I think that there will be a part of people who will want still to visit before they make a commitment and they commit to buy. But I think we'll see a continuation of people buying even without traveling there. I think people have started to understand that there's so much technology that allows them to see the properties in a way that, it was not possible some years ago. And so it makes them feel more trustful about it.
Excellent. Chitra, just to come to you as regards your rental side, do you see more of people renting lastminute.com, or are you still having people sort of looking to the future and saying, okay, book me in for June, July, August, or do you think it's going to be more on demand, closer to the time?
I think, with the huge travel restrictions we've faced, I mean, I agree with João that we've had a lot of virtual viewings with FaceTime, WhatsApp video, etc. Around half of the 30 properties I spoke about were bought remotely, because you can appoint, you can give your lawyer a power of attorney and do the transaction. But sort of rental bookings, people are looking. We get a lot of requests, but they really need to be able to fly over. So I think what's holding them back is literally they don't know when they can fly over. But one thing to say is that a valid business reason to fly is to actually view a property. We've given people letters that they're interested in making this investment with us, and they can actually fly if there are flights. The UK and quarantine and all this, of course, but it's nicer to quarantine here than in a London hotel, I promise you. So I think the long-term stays, we are getting requests, but I think there will be a flurry of activity again when the flight connections come back and the borders open up again. That's what.
Do you think there's enough demand or enough supply to meet that demand?
For long-term rentals, I think the supply. There are studies on the internet that you can get from the Statistics Institute, National Statistics Institute, on all of the above. Real estate sales levels, and I saw an article in Expresso, the Portuguese newspaper, last month, that the supply of rental properties went up hugely by 40% because of all the Airbnbs that were built. However, obviously, some owners will hold out for the summer rentals. Other owners will want to get long-term rentals into their properties. So what I would do is search and make the inquiries, and then when you can come over in the summer, just be ready to love it so much to commit. I mean, as I said, the international school for our buyers has been an important buyers and renters. Our Chiado property is in Baixo Chiado in Príncipe Real, which is really close to the British School of Lisbon, for example. 5-minute walk. I mean, where else do you get that sort of an apartment in a very upmarket place, and then a 5-minute walk away, there's an international school. And the same with the schools in the Algarve, even in, in anybody's day, people look for the school first, and then they, rent somewhere close or buy somewhere close if the pricing is right. And the hospitals, I put up a note about the private hospitals. It's not just for senior living, but any family moving over, for them, that's an important point. And the Algarve is very well served by one of the members. I'm sure some of you heard the talk by Dr. Paulo Souza. The HPA group has a lot of clinics and hospitals all along the Algarve, which is really fantastic. I mean, my own kids, and my family, we were so well looked after by Lush Doc, Dr. Maria Lish, Dr. Maria Alice, and Dr. Paulo Souza, who's heading up as clinical director. So it's these are the reasons. These are the core things people look at before moving, and obviously resort facilities, make a difference. And having restaurants on site and all that, adds to it. Especially now with COVID, we've all fine-tuned our home delivery services, room delivery and home delivery services. We've got fantastic menus. You can look them up online, and so it's convenience. We've tried to bring convenience to Sagres, where Uber Eats doesn't exist, with our own restaurants.
Carolyn, can I just compliment something that Chitra was saying there in answer to your question about the availability of product? Timing is absolutely, I cannot emphasize this enough, especially if you are beginning with, for example, a long-term rental with a view to then making a decision about what you want to do long-term in the region. The timing of your choice and the start of a rental is fundamental. And let me give you an example of how two areas work differently. In the Greater Lisbon area, most of the long-term rental stock, notwithstanding the point that Chitra has made, that we saw a lot of movement from short-term to long-term because of the Airbnb model kind of failing during COVID, and people wanting to get their inventory rented out and therefore considering long-term rentals. But notwithstanding that, most of the Greater Lisbon inventory is for residential purposes, in the sense that people are living and working there and they are then choosing to move and so on. So, for example, you get a much better mix between furnished and unfurnished, the typologies and where they are and so on and so forth. Completely different in the Algarve. The Algarve is set up primarily as a tourist region. So firstly, most of the properties are furnished. Finding unfurnished stock is mosca branca, as we say, a white fly. You can't spot them or capture them. And then the second thing is, imagine you as a property owner, if somebody says to you, I want to start a long-term rental. When are you starting? June the 15th. First thing you think is, they just want a cheap summer rental and then they're going to go away again on September the 15th. So what you really want to do, if you're a genuine long-term rental client or winter rental, is you want to make sure that you coordinate your dates such that the start of your stay coincides with the time when the owners actually want you for a longer period of time, or to start a longer period of time. So September.
I agree. Louise. I mean, usually this is true, but I guess because people can't fly here, I'm seeing some comments here. Not sure if the Irish government would accept your reason for flying. I mean, this is, I guess it's government specific, but, don't leave it too late for sure. Usually I would say any long-term rental in 2019, I would have said, try to sew it up in January, by January, because otherwise, people are getting their rental bookings in their villas by then. But this is an unusual year. And, as I said before, start inquiring upfront so that at least properties know that you're interested,
Yes, absolutely agree. 6 months beforehand is a good lead time in which to book a property for long-term in the Algarve.
Yeah. Michael, just to move on to you, what do you predict for future buying trends? Obviously, you're a little bit different, obviously, with the vineyards, and that comes with timing, it comes with seasons. What do you predict as regards Quinta dos Vales in the next sort of 6 to 8 months?
Sure. I mean, this was the first time that we actually sold property on site, and our experience was actually exactly the same as Chitra was saying, that there was a lot of remote purchases. For us, this was quite a surprise, as we had assumed that everyone who buys property will want to touch it, will want to be there and visit. but I think more than half has actually been sold remotely. We do have a long list of people who are just waiting to fly to the Algarve to get to know the property first. So we do think that will be a huge boom once the Algarve and Portugal in general opens up again. But it's just good to see that both options definitely work. And the other point is, again, on the long-term rentals. This is not just a hot topic in Portugal, but specifically in our company. This is something that we've been focusing on very strongly in the last few weeks, because we saw that there's a great opportunity there in the market. People want to come to the Algarve. Globally, you know, this trend to more digital and remote work is possible and will probably stick around post-COVID as well. And finally, it'll be a great, there's actually a term I learned from you, the rent to buy. The idea that first somebody comes over for a trial period of say 12 to 24 months and then basically is convinced with time. And yeah, we're very confident that if you come for 12 months, you won't leave again.
Just very, very quickly, and then if you can answer this, and just to touch on it very briefly, obviously Irish people are very much looking to move here, but that includes obviously Northern Irish as well, which come under the rule of Brexit. Do you feel there's going to be a lot more people wanting to move here post-COVID, simply because our restrictions, it's been a better country to live in, it's a safer country to live in, better for health, better for wellness, even from the health aspect, obviously with COVID in Ireland, every operation was shut down. Portugal stayed open. Do you think there's going to be an influx for them reasons, both Brexit and COVID, after, you know, in the next 6 months?
I've already seen examples of it. I've spoken to multiple people who already in the last 1-2 years have taken this decision, and Portugal, a lot of the time, is at the end of the day where people move to. And I can fully understand the reasoning. I mean, I first came to Portugal when I was 6 years old. I've since lived in multiple different countries, but I always knew I was going to come back, and I plan on staying here because just the whole package is amazing.
Yeah. So do you think that, obviously, do you think both with what's happened, obviously Brexit is one side, health is another, COVID obviously is a massive eye-opener to the world. You know, Chitra, for example, your point of view, and João, and even Luis from the senior living, do you think that it's going to be a higher influx of people wanting to move and rethink their lifestyle, both health, wellness?
No doubt about it for me, Carolyn. You know, Jeffrey, Graham and I did a whole webinar on why Portugal will be even more popular post-COVID-19. You'll find it on YouTube if you search Chitra Stern and Portugal. You know, this whole change of, you know, working from anywhere, WFA as I call it, and you know, change to, people have found out how easy it is to work from anywhere. And people have had time to reflect about what's important in their lives. You know, so the lifestyle of Portugal appeals hugely to people. As I said myself, you know, we originally came for 5 years, but here we are 20 years later, 20 years and 4 kids later. You know, Portugal is the most open, tolerant, liberal society that I've ever lived in. And this, you know, means a lot to a lot of people around the world. And I mean, everyone talks about the weather first, but I usually start with the society, you know, how welcoming they are, and, you know, to foreigners. And, you know, I can safely say that there's really no better place to live. So COVID has accelerated a lot of things out there, you know, technology, you know, online education, you know, people seeking, you know, you hear of people moving out of New York and London to the outside, and they will move to the Algarve, and we see them moving to smaller cities as well. They want, you know, I say Lisbon fits the Goldilocks principle of cities, of capital cities. It's not too large, it's not too small, and it's well connected. So the connections are important. I put that up on the chat. Faro Airport is well connected to so many European cities, and especially Ireland. So, you know, that is an important thing, and people are seeking this flexibility. And even in my day, you know, there were people coming over testing, you know, dad or mom might be traveling for work still to another city, but the kids were in school in the Algarve. And I see that model, you know, happening, you know, because, you know, we were feeling it firsthand in Martinhal residences where we're selling off plan, and the questions people are asking us. So it's going to be a trend. And I think Brexit, you mentioned my most unfavorite word.
Mine too.
So, you know, at a time when we should be seeking unity, we're being pulled apart. But I think after COVID, you know, the news is full of COVID at the moment, but the Brexit news will hit. And I think post-Brexit, people are looking for EU citizenship, EU residency. And they might not have thought about it before, but now, you know, I think it pushes them into a different, it's a huge shift in mindset. So that's what COVID's done on a lot of fronts, you know, it's pushed people, it's accelerated some people into new areas that they might have considered it, might have been further down the line. I mean, you know, with retirement as well, you know, why am I spending all this time here again? You know, this is going to be a big question people are going to ask after when the dust settles.
Yeah. Louise, just coming to you on that, as regards sort of people thinking about retirement, people thinking about, as you said earlier, long-term plans. Do you think people are going to maybe try to take retirement earlier and look at a model over here just to sort of have a better way of life and make their life longer rather than waiting to 65, 70 and then making that decision?
Yeah, so tons of sort of multiple layered questions there. The short answer is yes, and the reason is, apologies, I'm actually having to call in from my phone because my PC somehow locked up. So thank goodness for alternative technology. So we, firstly, perhaps a message to this audience, the Irish audience, and that is, in our business, we deal with around 28 or so nationalities of people. Most of them are in some way involved with long-term rentals. And there is already a huge, when I say huge, a large demand for long-term rental stock. And the competition is quite global. So we as Europeans compete with you know, nationalities outside Portugal, for example, Americans, Canadians, Brazilians, and so on, that need to get residency via, for example, either renting or buying property. So that just gives you an idea. There's competition for the limited stock of long-term rentals from nationalities and countries outside Portugal. And in the Algarve, we see this a lot. So come back to your question about the demand. It's there. And then we're finding, we're actually running a survey at the moment online, and I'll mail people afterwards the link. And I'd love you all to participate because we want to make it kind of a rolling survey in terms of finding out about the profile of people looking for Portugal. But the point is this, we are already seeing a change in demographics because the wealthier nations can afford to retire earlier. And therefore, the sacrifices that they make in terms of retiring early is more than compensated by the reduced cost of living in a country like Portugal, plus, as Chitra has put up, the non-habitual residency status, which is kind of 10% on eligible income from outside Portugal. So we are already seeing an early retiree in our profile of client. We have around, I would say, 30% of people that are between 60 and 69. So I would say the sort of average retirement age, but we have 30+% of people that are 50 to 59 and moving permanently. So almost as large a group that is moving 10 years earlier on retirement than one would expect. I mean, assuming an average sort of age of 65. So the demographics are changing already. And then you add on top of that things like digital nomads, you know, in Madeira, and we're talking about the Algarve, but, you know, it's kind of one big community. In Madeira, they're trying to create a digital nomad community. In the Algarve, we already have the infrastructure to be able to do things like this because we have, larger properties, multiple people able to sort of cohabit in larger spaces and share infrastructure. So the simple answer to your question is we are already seeing an increase in demand. And as regards both the point that João has made in terms of investment property, it's very clear in Portugal that new build property with the quality associated typically with accessibility, acoustics, temperature control and whatever, this is the sort of property that is in demand from the discerning buyer. Therefore, it is going up in value because it's comfortable to live in all year round. And then from a rentals perspective, we are competing, the sort of traditional European resident is competing with other nationalities that are looking for residency options that require real estate to prove permanence in Portugal. So the demand is continuing to grow.
João, just to answer a question here from Richard. It says, briefly, what advantages has the Algarve over the Costa del Sol in Spain for an Irish resident considering either a holiday home or retirement and undecided about mainland Spain versus Portugal? For example, tax advantages, property taxes, costs, weather, seasons, rental.
Well, yes, there are various factors. I think I'm not going to repeat what Chitra and Michael and Luis already said, which a lot of what they said already replied to that question. But I just would like to say that, for example, when it comes to climate, we compete, the Algarve competes and Portugal in general competes with southern Spain, even southern France, parts of Italy and Greece. But where the Algarve probably has the upper hand is probably in the fact that it's a low density area, very low density area. And it's a very secure destination with great infrastructure, great healthcare, etc. So it's the conjunction of all these factors that make Algarve different from, for example, mainland Spain or the south of Spain.
Just to touch on your particular resort, though, as far as I'm aware, not that I'm 100% sure, but mainland Spain, Costa del Sol, doesn't technically have a resort that would offer all of the things that you were doing, and especially the sustainability side.
Yes, there are some resorts that are similar to ours in parts of Italy and in southern Spain. But obviously we are unique because we are a new build resort and we're doing things from scratch, basically. So in terms of sustainability, no other resort in Spain offers the same kind of sustainability elements that we have, namely, the geothermal system and the solar panels that we are installing and so on. But having said that, it's important to say and to add to what the other members of the panel already said, the fact that, the non-habitual resident regime in Portugal has existed for a few years now. What we have seen in terms of the Brexit and the COVID impact is the fact that now people, and Chitra already mentioned it, people are working from anywhere now. And a lot of people, namely the Irish, have already started, so this is not a new thing, they've already started to benefit or to come to Portugal to benefit from the non-habitual resident regime. And the non-habitual resident regime is essentially a tax incentive. It doesn't mean that people have to buy a property. They can rent long-term, for example, if they want to, and benefit from the system, from the regime already. So the main benefit is the tax benefit, basically. What they have to do in order to be able to benefit from the non-habitual tax regime is that they have to live in Portugal for at least 6 months in every year. And we've seen that people, since the pandemic started, have again looked at coming to Portugal, living in Portugal, and trying to benefit from this regime. In addition to that, due to Brexit, we've seen non-Europeans, namely the British now since last year, wanting to move to Portugal, or simply buying an investment property in Portugal with the objective of getting the residency that the Golden Visa gives them.
Perfect. Michael, just come to you on that point. Obviously, we're not going to get into a tit for tat Portugal versus Spain, but you know what?
I think we're all happy to do that.
I want to get sued. But Michael, as regards your development is very different as well as to what Costa del Sol would or mainland Spain offers. And you obviously traveled different countries, and your dad as well, and then came back here because this was his passion and this is where he wanted to obviously to grow his business. What would you say to Richard on that question?
Yeah, it's Costa del Sol is interesting because it's one of the first examples I usually give. We're very much the opposite. We are not Costa del Sol in the sense I can speak about Carvoeira Gardens, for instance. The reason that we named it Carvoeira Gardens is because the architecture and the landscaping was planned hand in hand. The two architects are best friends, and that's why we chose them for this. So the position and location of the houses on this resort, I mean, we're talking a total of 18 houses, was planned around the existing growth there. So this plot of land had been standing empty for 20 decades. So what grew there is of the authentic Algarve. So you don't find huge grass areas and palm trees and all that sort of stuff. You find what is not naturally grown in the Algarve. And what we try to do is enhance this, but keep this authentic character. And it's one of the great strengths that I personally love about the Algarve, that a lot of areas, I mean, Ferragudo is my favorite, for instance. That's where I lived last year. It's a tiny fishing village where it has a huge expat community and a lot of new development, but they maintained their authenticity and, you know, the inherent characteristics of the Algarve. And you find this in a lot of different places, and that makes a big difference for me.
Yeah, just to swap on to something as close to that, connectivity. Obviously, Carvoeira Gardens is within walking distance to a lot of things. So even though transport, you know, you would need transport to get to and from certain areas of the Algarve, once you're there, everything is very accessible, isn't it? Michael,
no,
sorry.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, for the example of Carvoeira, it's walking distance. So, for a holiday, it's easy. You've got restaurants, beaches, bars, all of that walking distance. But also for residential purposes, I do mostly recommend that people have cars when they're in the Algarve because there is such diversity as well. There's so much to see, and it's worth driving there. But still, I mean, we're in Western Europe. Uber is everywhere, and you can get around incredibly easily and at good value for money as well.
João, just to pop on to you about connectivity, obviously go back to obviously sustainability side of your resort because that's a major part to it. But because you're a little bit more inland, that adds to the attraction, doesn't it? You know, people can endure the real Algarve and.
Yes, I mean we're all about creating a new destination that feels authentic, that people can, you know, when they are there, they feel that they're in the real Algarve, basically. We're only 7 kilometers away from Loulé city. And Loulé city is a city that is, you know, somewhat different from some of the cities in Algarve in that it's a city that lives all year round. You know, it has activities all year round. You know, the municipality organizes lots of events all year round. It is a city that has lots of restaurants, you know, events, a daily market that people come to every day, except on Sundays, to, you know, to buy their, you know, their fruits and vegetables and, you know, and buy from local producers of lots of different things. And it's a city that has 1 or 2 hotels only. So it's not a tourist city. So people don't stay overnight in Loulé. However, they come to Loulé for the day, to spend the day, you know, for the restaurants, for the activities and so on, what I've mentioned already. And this is the city that is, you know, the base city for Umbria Resort, basically, you know, 7 kilometers away, and still, you know, it's an inland city and a great, you know, a great city to live in, basically, or to live nearby.
Right. Chitra, just to come to you on the connectivity side, obviously you have a resort in Quinta do Lago, which is very accessible and very well known. More so than...
Yeah, I just like to put it in perspective for the Irish, though. You know, I've been to Ireland several times, and I've driven from Dublin to Ashford Castle, driven to Mayo before. The road system here, is so easy. I mean, from the airport to Sagres, it's an hour and a half. From Lisbon, central Lisbon to Sagres is, less than 2.5 hours. I know how long it took us. It took us 4 hours because we had to take some R roads, and for those Irish on the call, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of the infrastructure funds here went to building great highways, okay, connecting east and west and north and south. So this is a very different scenario here. So connectivity is it's all relative, So Quinta do Lago has a lot of infrastructure. It's well connected to Faro Airport. It's got 4 golf courses. I think the Irish know Quinta do Lago very well because of Dennis O'Brien. There are a lot of Irish in Quinta do Lago, and it's pretty self-sufficient. Actually, it's Almansil and Loulé are the sort of, closest villages. So it's all, close by. Val de Lobo is right next door. And as I said, Sagres, is close to Vila do Bispo, to Lagos. I lived in Lagos for 7 years. I lived in Sagres for 7 years. When we were living in Sagres, we used to have to do day trips to Lisbon to meet our, ministry, as well as lawyers. Our lawyers, PLM Jota, are based on Avenida Liberdade, or were based on Avenida Liberdade at the time in Lisbon. So we used to do day trips, So that's, connectivity takes on a whole new meaning here. We have clients for Sagres arriving at Lisbon Airport. So it's not just Faro Airport you should look at for connectivity to the Algarve, it's also Lisbon Airport. So I just have a very different view. I mean, I used to live in London for 12 years. And yeah, that was, yes, with a Paddington Express, now Heathrow Express, obviously things are different. But, to navigate a city like London, it's completely different to Lisbon or the Algarve. And it's a small country. It's a quarter of the size of California, but amazing roads. You've also got the train that connects the north to the south. So
just a question here from Peter, Chitra. Is it complicated to import a car from Ireland to Algarve, or would you recommend purchase locally? I refuse to answer, so you go ahead.
Yeah, actually, because the driving is on the other side of the road. I know a lot of British and Irish people actually do import their cars. It can't be complicated, but for driving safety, I find it quite, I think it's pretty dangerous. I've driven on both sides of the road. I would personally, buy a new car here, but that's me. I mean, I hate driving right-hand drives on the left-hand side of the road and vice versa. That's my sort of 2p worth, I'm sorry.
No problem. Louise, just to pop to you as regards connectivity, because I know with your resorts, you have a very different concept to that. You prefer people not to drive and not, because of what you offer. What do you want to tell us a bit?
Let me not lie to people. You have to drive. I mean, the Algarve is not connected across by some high-speed rail. So, public transport infrastructure, that's in Lisbon, where you've got underground train, buses, etc. So you need a car if you want to go to Quinta do Lago or anywhere else. Obviously, we have everything you need on site. So we do, some of our guests do arrive by transfer. We work with a local, very high quality transfer company with Vianos, and they keep the baby seats super clean. They know everything is perfect. They offer Wi-Fi in their taxis, but they arrive on resort, and we've got a baby concierge service. We have a mercado on site, so any shopping you need to do for your stay, it's all on site. You've got different restaurants to order from, so the variety of food is there. But people can rent a car for one day. Europcar had that service where they would deliver the car in Sagres for one day if you want to go explore the area, or you hire this transfer company, the taxi service, shuttle service we call it, to go into town to try out all the amazing restaurants that are in Sagres town or in Vila do Bispo, or visit the different beaches. There are around 20 different beaches all around the Sagres Peninsula. The West Coast beaches are simply outstanding. Praia do Amado, Castelejo, Cordoama, the Sagres beaches, Mareta, Beliche, Tonel. So, I mean, you know, it depends on what kind of holiday you want. I definitely wouldn't say that you don't need a car. In Chiado, you don't need a car, okay?
Yeah.
But even in Cascais, you need a car, you know? Although, you know, there is a train station and a beautiful coastal train ride takes you into the heart of old Lisbon. So, you know, it's, we're not, which city should I compare to? Dublin? No, we're not New York yet, all over, for sure.
And Luis, regards your resorts, you're a little bit different.
Indeed. I think I listen to sometimes the conversation about infrastructure with a smile on my face. I used to live in São Paulo, where it took me 3.5 hours easily to get to an airport, and sometimes miss the plane, another 2.5 hours back. Our concept is very different. I think what we've seen over the years is an increasing, and I say this bearing in mind that we cater primarily to a pre-retiree and a retiree audience. Now, for many, many years, the Algarve has been, and many other areas of the world have been very appealing because of their sort of natural beauty and so on. People choose to live in very beautiful but often quite remote places, so inland in Monchique and then so the hills and so on. And you know, there is a space for that, there is an audience for that, but our philosophy is to cater for people who really want to live within, let's say, an established sort of infrastructured community. And this means generally one of the key criteria, especially following up on what sort of Chitra is saying, don't buy a left-hand drive car, you know, in a right-hand drive country. And I have one. I have an Audi that is with the steering wheel on the wrong side, and I drive it, and I've had it for 20 years in the Algarve, and no accidents thus far, touch wood. But
yeah,
the point I make is this: it's terrible to overtake. You need a co-passenger. The point I make is this: is that many people these days, especially when they're coming from a different country, they want to have the choice of not having to drive if they can. Some don't want to drive, but some want to have the choice of not driving. So often they choose a city like Lisbon, for example, and when they come down south, they want to be in a place where they can use the sort of the local public transport or walk to all the amenities. So top of the list for people who seek us out is they want to be walking distance to bars and restaurants, the beach, local shops and amenities, you know, and the list sort of goes on, and you've got sporting facilities and so on. So our concept, to come back to your question about our project specifically, although I don't necessarily want to make it just about our project, but to answer your question, our project has a lot of infrastructure in the project itself, which means you don't necessarily need to go off-site. But something like a restaurant, for example, we have in Praia da Luz maybe 35, 40, 50 restaurants, and we already have foreseen a plan that people will be able to deliver to Luz Living if somebody wants to order through the concierge service. So we want people to integrate as best possible into the local community and use the amenities, use the services, you know, pay for the restaurants, create the local jobs. We want that to happen, and that's very much part of our philosophy. And then on the sort of the driving bit, it doesn't mean we don't have garages. We have closed garages, but they will all come with electric charge points and things, because we want people to move towards more sustainable type of connectivity. So electric vehicles, even though they're really tough to manage in Portugal still, but we're hopefully preparing for the future. As I know, for example, João is as well. I'm not sure, Chitra, whether you're planning any of that.
We have Tesla chargers and electric chargers at Martinhal Sagres. You know, it's actually destination charger, I suppose. I mean, I haven't checked, but it is a destination charger. Yeah, we're planning the branded residences with electric car sharing. You know, there are apps coming up, you know, with BMW and these companies doing car sharing concepts. Not everyone needs to own a car. So yeah, I mean, and I think the next wave of EU funds are very tightly tied to sustainability and water projects. So, you know, watch the space. A lot more is going to be happening on EVs, on sustainability projects, etc. Yeah.
Just, I'm very conscious of the time at the moment, and I know some people had to leave around 5. There is 2 types of contracts when you're buying property in Portugal. Obviously, a touristic contract and a residential contract. João, very, very quickly, could you give the participants an idea of what the difference is?
Sure. So you have all the properties in Portugal are freehold, first of all. But then you have a difference between residential properties and touristic properties. The difference between them is simple. In tourist properties, you have to buy the property, or the developer has to sell the property fully furnished. And there can only be one management entity managing the rentals of those properties. So those are basically the 2 essential and main differences between touristic properties and residential properties. Whereas residential properties, you can, you know, you can sell the properties and you can buy them without furniture or with furniture. And if you own a residential property, you can rent it out either through a rental management company, or the owner can rent it out himself through you know, different platforms such as Airbnb, for example.
Okay, Michael, just finally, any final advice for people thinking of buying or renting and taking that move to Portugal?
Yeah, I was the first one to be asked last time as well, and I haven't come up with a better answer since. Just do it. Just give it a try. I mean, the last thing I really want to say is most people, when they think Algarve, the first thing that they tend to mention is the weather. I am completely in love with the Algarve. I'm probably going to stay the rest of my life here. And I'm one of the only people who doesn't like the weather here. I lived in Leicester for 3 years and I absolutely loved the grey. There's no sarcasm, that's my type of weather. But still, even taking that into account, the Algarve is the place that I want to be. And I say with full confidence that if people give it a go, I'm sure most of them will stay. And don't forget, try the Portuguese wine. And if you want to make your own wine, then you come to me.
Perfect. And do you think capital investment is on a comeback to Portugal?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you think capital investment is on its way back to Portugal? As in, it's a good time to invest. It's a good time now to invest.
Just really putting yourself out there with that recommendation. But what I can say is touristic demand has, well, excluding COVID, never been higher. And as soon as COVID comes to an end, this is probably going to boom. And this now new trend of long-term rentals, of digital nomads, I think this will create a lot more demand in the market. I'm very happy to be in the real estate business in Portugal right now. So I think I would recommend that without putting my neck out there too much.
Excellent. Chitra, any last words from you?
Absolutely. I mean, we've invested in different classes of real estate, you know, education, commercial, and, you know, tourism. And, you know, last year, would anyone have thought that, you know, one vaccine was going to be discovered before the end of the year, let alone all these different ones? Whereas, you know, we're in a very different place this March compared to first point of lockdown. And even back then, I was optimistic post-COVID, things will look so different. Now with all the vaccine rollouts, I mean, now's the time to buy. And it relates to, you know, Portugal was not on the map 20 years ago when I first arrived. Portugal was the most undiscovered country in Western Europe. This is not the case today. I mean, the flight routes have just increased so much that, it's become a very cosmopolitan place. It's not just British and Irish people living in the Algarve, so I mean, foreign people, if you take the foreign people. Obviously there are many Portuguese who live in the Algarve, but what I'd like to say is it's on the radar now. And so when we make a comeback, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of demand, and we're seeing that with the school inquiries. People are just waiting for travel to come back. That's all they're waiting for. And they're definitely waiting to address, all the stuff they've realized during reflection, move to a place that they really want to live, So yeah, come now, as Michael says, give it a shot.
And Luis, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, just two really, maybe to sort of lining up what we do. The first is, for many years, pre or post-COVID, post the last crash and whatever, we have always relied on the fundamentals of the region. And for us, the Algarve's fundamentals have not changed. It's the reason why some of the Algarve entrepreneurs of 40, 50 years ago came to the region and saw the beauty and glade. It's the reason why people like Chitra came and Roman came and other people will come. So the fundamentals are there. And from our demographic, when we're dealing with, for example, rentals, the demand is constant and growing. Therefore, if you want to discover the region via a rental, what I would say is 6 months at least ahead of time, plan to do so. As far as retirement and pre-retirement, and bundling this up a little bit with our kind of luge living concept, and that is that the aspirational lifestyle is very much not only about where you live as a region, but also where you live as a community. So make sure that you make the right decision around the sort of community that you're going to live in for a long time. Because as Michael says, the likelihood that you will come and want to stay is massive. And therefore, make sure that you invest the time in investigating your options so that when you pull the trigger, you make the right decision, because it's likely you're going to be sticking with that decision for a long time in the positive sense thing. So welcome, you're all very, very welcome.
And João, finally from you?
Well, not much to add. I agree with what everyone said. Just one point. I agree that people are desperate to get traveling again and to get to see the properties that they want to buy once more. And I believe that once that happens, and due to what happened now with the pandemic, people will start traveling to places where they feel that they are safe, to places that are low density. I think they will sooner travel to a place like the Algarve than to big cities such as Paris or London, for example. They will want to travel to places, and they will want to buy property in places where they feel that they are close to nature, where they have access to green spaces. And I think the Algarve ticks all those boxes without without a fault. So I believe that people will still, sooner rather than later, travel to the Algarve, will keep buying in the Algarve. And I believe that the Algarve will have, comes out from this pandemic probably with less competition than it had before.
Perfect. Just to let everybody know, we will be sending by email, because we're literally out of time, a little video of each of the resorts so you can get a better feel of what each of the resorts do, and obviously the contacts for each of the panel of speakers today. So you can contact them direct if you have any further questions or are looking for any individual advice. Just to say, firstly, thank you so much, João, Chitra, Michael, and Luis for joining us today, for all of your advice and your comments, and obviously telling it how it is, because that's obviously what people prefer and what people need to know. It is the end of our Algarve Living series for 2021. Thank you also to each of our corporate sponsors who have played a massive part in putting the series together, and obviously the Ireland-Portugal Business Network. We will be sending out the contact details of all of the speakers throughout of the whole Algarve Living series, and obviously the sponsors, so you can have a one-to-one with each of them, and obviously they can contact you, and as I say, any follow-up questions that you have, or if you're thinking of making the move or financial, as I say, in any of the even sustainability side, feel free to get in touch. Any other questions you have, please feel free to contact Arnold at the Ireland Portugal Business Network. I need to put my teeth back in today. But thank you all once again, and as I say, we look forward to seeing you again next year. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Arnold.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Carolyn.